we lost 80, and it was really horrific. So that takes priority then over the extreme heat. And also extreme heat, I think in South Africa isn't as bad as Botswana, except our northern parts, as Zimbabwe in certain places. And yeah, we do, because I think that's a narrowing of the country and the coastlines on both sides. Right now, I do live in the southern tip of Africa, and I can tell you right now, thank goodness we have a very strong wind blowing, because the temperature must be around 40. But we do have the wind as well, which, as you know, is excellent for the management of the water evaporation, etc. So the heat wave doesn't occur, I think. It does, as I said, when a person living in a poor shack, in an informal settlement, we call them hokkies, a tin little house of 4 walls. Their temperature is sometimes 5 to even 10 degrees more than somebody in a brick or wooden built house. And we do have the majority of our communities living in these situations, as was said today already. And those are the people, and as you say, those are the ones that need to be acknowledged, that they are in this shock that they are not coping with, and how they should be to be able to become resilient. Definitely needs intervention. And yes, wonderful to see what this program, in the workshop, I think you called it, is doing, and that, hoping that it is live as well, because the sooner we can share it out and get it to, I am also part of the Climate Justice Coalition, which is 60 different climate justice groups. Get what you're doing through to them, and let's grow it. I think that is important, especially with grassroots situations, which definitely are most affected.
Very, very interesting what you say, and really excellent description of somehow the situation of extreme heat and what need to be done. And you see, Bernadette, I just looking at the situation in terms of the Laudato Si movement, where has been the problem that have reached the situation which, precisely talking about climate change 30 years on, today we have reached a situation in which the poorer people of the world are the most affected for the main vector of climate change, which is extreme heat. Have you analyzed this in the Laudato Si movement in South Africa?
As I said, I don't think we specifically have done a project yet. I personally have done this kind of investigation, but again, my project was actually Botswana. It is something that is on my agenda for this year. And as I said, it is very thankful. We work within the Catholic Church, so we're not working with the whole community, but every single village, almost, every single province does have a Catholic church. So we do reach the majority. And yes, it's my constant call, my constant cry for the voiceless to our church. And as I say, I have received that this year, but now, unfortunately, US aid is affecting our church's efforts, by them not being pulled. But I'm actually thinking about it today to help them, that we need to raise more funds to get to these people and to address, well, as I say, I think it's important to bring this topic right up front to the fore, because we do have a lot. We've just released a climate commission, but they have different focuses, and at this first year is going to be waste, which is important, and it links, but it's not as urgent and imperative as the conditions, the people that are exposed to the heat, and to me, they go hand in hand with water. and the metabolism of such is
Right.
the worst in those poor areas. So at this stage, we do not have, the Laudate Si movement doesn't have a project, but it is imminent.
Oh, it's very, very good to know that. I'm sorry, Busi Masilela is having some network problems, I understand. We call this with MEC the phantom phenomena, the phantom syndrome. Is like that, my friend MEC, there in Zimbabwe? Well, MEC is not listening to the...
I'm
MEC,
there,
are you
Dr.
there?
Kolos. Yes, yes. I was trying to unmute because I had muted. Yes, what my colleague Benedict is putting to the table, I think we are together. Laudate Si all over. We are doing almost similar programs, and also we are also really learning on how we can integrate this extreme heat topic into our work. And I think that's the reason why Dr. Carlos as well, personally, I've tried to introduce you to the Africa office of Laudate Si, Ashley and the team. So I think what my colleague explained, the Catholic Church is one, and whatever happens, let's say South Africa, of course, we have got different bishops' conferences, but they implement almost the same. As Laudate Si movement, we are also not a very old chapter here in Zimbabwe. We are a budding chapter, but the advantage is that we have got a support system that is helping us. I think being an organization under the church, that's where we get our strength. And we are really appreciating that our church leadership, they listen to cry of the poor, and we actually support the communities as much as we are Catholics. But when it comes to community, we reach out. For example, Caritas, they work, they don't discriminate according to creed. So what I'm trying to say is, as Laudate Si, yes, we are actually having campaigns on fossil fuel, but also we are seeing that, or personally, I'm seeing that extreme heat is one of the champion effect and it is of more immediate attention as compared maybe to some of the campaigns. So I think there should be a way of how we should navigate through as the church, as Laudate Si, and also see how we can put this agenda on our interventions. I think I'm in support with my colleague. As I said, we are one and the same in terms of our programming. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mike, for your interesting contribution. And I would like to come back. I get this opportunity to ask to be in contact with you, Bernadette. I really like very much your analysis of the situation, because, when I went, I work in South Africa, preparing, organizing, supporting the World Conference on Racism in Durban in 2001. I was deployed working there in communities, and really I had this experience that I mentioned this to Mac early on, that really the communities that were exposed to apartheid, the injustice of economic marginalization, also related to their capabilities to really have a better life in education, in health, etc. I have the impression that the concept that I received from many sectors of politics and research was that, the grass community groups really didn't speak English, and therefore it was not possible to invite them to participate in assemblies, in meetings with people who spoke English. And that, created a type of filter in the middle that I remember I was walking in certain roads of Soweto with Nelson Mandela, who expressed me his anger because that wasn't true. But in this day, in the last, these days I feel the same. No, Carlos, you cannot have access to grass community groups, elderly people, because they don't speak English. So we cannot have a Zoom with them because they will understand the idea. What is your experience, Bernard, in South Africa?
Well, I have lived in Gauteng. I have traveled extensively, and now I am down in the Western Cape. So community development and sustainable development are my, besides being with Laudato are my avenues of expertise. And so I have visited. I don't spend enough time at grassroots level, but I have done projects there. And well, I'm sure that you would know that even if somebody cannot speak English, you can communicate. And I do believe that because English is so dominant in South Africa, Southern Africa, Zimbabwe definitely as well, definitely everybody can understand it. Definitely. They might communicate back in their language or in the Afrikaans, which is the country language that was also developed out in an apartheid area. But their languages, we've got 11. I know it's not a lot when I look at the rest of Africa, but it is a lot for us. It is very diverse, and that also causes problems. But because of that, English does prevail. And I do think the last time I visited here in the Western Cape, I did a visit to all the elderly. And even if the elderly person couldn't speak English, you could communicate, and then there was somebody around that could translate. So I don't think that English is a hinder at this stage. If it was in 2001, perhaps, but certainly not now.
Well, thanks. I get a little bit more realistic approach because it's very difficult this, and Bernard, it has been very nice to hear your work, and I spoke to Meg about this early on because I was a little bit surprised. Now I would like then to go ahead. Just I will explain, Meg. I don't know if you think that's okay. I can explain to Meg to Bernard that the proposal of working on issues of extreme heat, or you want to take the head and explain to her, and we can start a dialogue on our project, please? Can you do that, please?
No, for now, I think you can take the floor. Go ahead, Dr. Carlos. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Bernard, that we work in these two lines. We need to work against fossil fuels industries. We need to stop fossil fuels, but that is a long run. But we need to, as good Catholics, and I'm a Catholic that, lives in Argentina, although I reside in Spain, I think that we need to protect the life of our people from extreme heat. Because really, extreme heat oil is the main vector of climate change, and the one that produces all the other environmental and meteorological impacts. Because when there is extreme heat in a place, then will come mega storms with enormous amount of flooding cities, especially flooding cities. And then we come a drought, and then we come the lack of vegetables and foods. And really, all this is a change, a chain of effects that really are produced by extreme heat produced by the type of society in which, the high level of consumption determines the production of these products that really earn money to a very few number of humans that are really benefiting from these negative impacts. And extreme heat, when it works on rural areas and urban areas have a differentiated impact when attacks people living in urban areas. It's synergized with the local urban heat island effect, which is the heat produced by cities that have been really badly constructed, that have been replacing natural resources by cement, by glass, by other forms of building construction. So those cities during the day, in winter and in summer, absorb the heat of the sunlight, and during the times of heat wave potency synergies with these local urban heat island effects and produce in cities very, very serious consequences, very grave consequences, you know, with certain areas in the cities that can differentiate their temperatures for almost 10 to 15 centigrades. In the city in which I am now, Cordoba, for instance, there are places when the temperature is 30 degrees centigrades, you measure certain parts of the city in which we will reach 50, 55 degrees centigrades. And the people that are on those places are the people who need to be helped, supported, because they should know about this temperature, but they don't know about their temperature. So to let them know their temperature, we need to use very simple methods, such as, you know, the availability of a local thermometer that can access buying it at very low price in order to know the temperature they have at their homes. With this knowledge, the temperature at their homes, they can really establish a heat map of their building, of their house, and with this map building, you know, of the different rooms with temperature they have during the day, they can manage the people who are vulnerable. If you live in a family with a diabetic person, or you have a just born baby, that are very, very vulnerable to temperatures above at night 20 degrees centigrade, and during the day about 30 degrees centigrade, and most of the people don't know about that. We need to be very careful. So we need to give these people very, so this vulnerable to temperatures above place at night, extended to manage those workers that work in places where there's no temperature known, or even in schools where in many cases children or young people at school don't know the temperature which they are exposed while they are studying, learning, the learning process really will be very badly affected. So what we want to do is precisely to empower these local communities to manage heat at their place, at their home, at their work, at their place of study. And that will have a tremendous impact, because we will put down life loss, sickness, and economic loss. Because when a person have a heat stroke, they can go to work, they can keep or look after their children going to school properly, and you know, going to the hospital is a tremendous amount of money that has been spent each time that extreme heat appears. So we are trying to do is to set up a community project, a pilot project in South Africa. And after listening to you, I am very interested to continue the discussion to see if we can involve you, as the case of having with Zimbabwe, and we do with Uganda and with Sierra Leone, as 4 countries that have chosen in Africa to carry out this project. It would be very interesting to us to see if we can work empowering these people. Of course, we are planning to produce in this moment a collective production of a manual to confront extreme heat, and we will do it with the experience of our people in different projects. And then we like to to know also your view, and I want to ask your view on the Conference of Parties of Climate Change, because, you know, Ireland, after participating in many conferences of parts of climate change, there is an important place to establish global policy, global governance on climate emergency and extreme heat. And what I see using this conference is that really never discussed properly the question of extreme heat. And that is because there are not the real people that suffer extreme heat, because most of the people that go to this conference never experience more than 40 degrees centigrade in their life. So they show in the global governance is lacking of the real participation of the right holders, of the true right holders, those people that suffer the consequence of climate change. Instead, in this place, a civil society that go to this conference, who go to this conference are people from large NGOs, people from, you know, universities that really all work and, you know, live with air conditioning system in which they never be exposed to extreme heat. So we try to do, when we work with our people at local level, be in Zimbabwe, be in Uganda, or now if we can work with you, being in South Africa, we bring them to this conference of parties in order to they contribute to change the situation, because the COPs are lacking of the voices of the real vulnerable communities. What do you think about that, Bernardine? Hello, Bernadette. Can you hear me, Bernadette?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Sorry, it didn't unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. So, as I said, I work with as a Laudato movement representative, a member. I work with the Climate Justice Coalition, and a lot of them have the resources which we don't have to go to these COP. All the different COPs, and I have experiences from them, stories from them of each time, and of Laudato movement that have gone. And the problem is those advocates, those people on the ground, they are kept out of the big rooms, those air-conditioned rooms where the decisions are made. They are not allowed to go into those areas. That's what I have heard. I personally have never had the resources to go to one of these. But I followed it closely day by day, and you see all the big things happening, but it's outside in the streets where the people are. And definitely in South Africa, we have got some, but again, they're the leader of the NGO, but we have got some very good NGOs. The one I'm going to mention is SAFC, South African Faith CEI, I'm not sure exactly what it is, community engagement. It's really, they are grassroots and run, it's an interfaith organization. And yes, I know they got through to some, the top people get through and then come back. But it is unfortunate. I would love to know if you, Dr. Carlos, can get, I can think of some people here in South Africa, we could get them to be those voices that are never heard, the voiceless. Would, I think, better still is if those leaders could come to their homes to see. But if you can get them there with probably good footage, to actually expose the truth, the reality, and especially, as you say, the heat, and definitely with the way the houses are built, the homes are built. We can't call it a hockey, as we call it a house. To expose that to the likes of these people that are so indifferent and as you say, indifferent and of suffering and of a reality of the actual climate crisis that we are in, and trying to push it aside that it's always been, and it's a circle of time that always comes back. It's, they do not see that it's they do not want to see they have blinkers on, and so yes, to try and get those blinkers off and get the people to put their money where their mouth is, into the right place, to get resilience brought, helped to help these people, again, education with resources to be able to benefit these people, so that as they go over the shock of stress, they can manage it and eventually be able to come back, adapt, as you were saying, more than mitigate. Yes, well, with both.
Many thanks, Bernadette. Very interesting what you just say, and of course I will be interested to start a dialogue with you, and therefore I will ask Meg Sibanda if you agree that he puts us in touch. Meg, if you can share the details, the contact details with Bernadette, so we can initiate this dialogue. I don't know, Bernadette, if you are prepared to, that we have a short analysis of the situation and to see if we can develop activities in South Africa.
Yes, definitely. Meg, please do share, and thank you.
Okay.
This is really, I think, a very positive step forward, which is essential. So yes, please, thank you. I'm happy to be part of this process.
Good, excellent, but many thanks to you. Well, Meg, I don't know if you want to add something else. I know inviting the other people because they have some problem to speak in English, but Meg, do you like to make any comment? Therefore, if we...
Thank you, Dr. Carlos. I think not much comments, but I would like to just cement what Bernadette said. I think we have always had a conversation on doing something for our people, for our communities. I think both of us, we are taking this as a starting point and as an opportunity. That's how I take it. And I think we have to embrace that. And this is something that we are also experiencing as individuals, because these extreme heat, we are not spelled out. Our relatives, us, our communities. So it's cross-cutting, and I'm really humbled to have Bernadette on board. Thank you, Dr. Carlos.
Oh, thank you to you for this explanation, which is very good. Then we will try to establish a reopening of the discussions in South Africa, and we try to plan a meeting for the next few days in order to clarify the situation, because Busi has not returned to the meeting. I understand that he may have some problems of network, so we should try to go to a close of this meeting, trying to understand that this is the first meeting to start working. It's not a simple way. We need to really go step by step, but I'm sure that we'll be able to really get to our final destination, which is really empower people while we fight the fossil fuel industry. Because if we don't empower people to confront extreme heat and the consequence of extreme heat in their lives, there are not only high temperatures, but also flooding, drought, lack of food. Really, this is not going to be good, because the people, most of the people who are talking about don't use cars, don't use planes, don't use boats. So they, in many cases, don't understand what is the implication of fossil fuel life for their life. So we need to work to stop fossil fuel contamination. We need to do it quickly, but in the countries that they should be doing that. As I'm sure that Zimbabwe is not a big polluter. I'm sure that, you know, Uganda is not a big polluter, but the polluters are really the larger countries, the United Kingdom, the USA, Canada, Europe, China, and I'm sure that we need to talk with the communities there, and we are organizing these months of action from April to May in the northern hemisphere, and we see that interest will happen. We, you know, make Bernadette, Julia, Raul have been working almost all night with the United States. I found enormous amount of Americans that like to have these months of action in the United States, because they say that really the months of action will be very, very inclusive to discuss the role of fossil fuel industry, because in the United States, Americans don't have information about how fossil fuels operates in the world. And that will be very important. And because many of them understand that extreme heat is something that needs to be stopped immediately, because puts in danger life.
Sorry, can I just disturb you 1 minute on that? I have to bring the South African situation on with regard fossil fuel to highlight it, that we have to have a just energy transition. We have to phase out because of the same thing that you're talking about, because the people on the ground, those people that are working in mining of coal, so the fossil fuel, the raw material, and those who are in the production of fossil fuel, we haven't got an economy to replace that job. So we need to have a slower process of phasing out of fossil fuel, so that we do not leave anyone left behind. Yeah.
I'm very glad that you have things very clear.
Yeah.
I'm very glad that you have things very clear. I know that you really have a good read of the situation. This happened in the global south countries, my friend Bernadette. So it's nice to hear you. So Julia, Raúl, Meg, Bernadette, vamos a concluir la reunión y vamos a llamar una segunda reunión para Sudáfrica para la semana que viene. Julia, Meg, Bernadette, Raúl, we are going to stop, as you know, an intermission, this meeting for South Africa, and we will try to call a second meeting for South Africa for the months of action within the next 10 days. And meanwhile, I will try to have a reconnection with Busi Masilela, and of course, I would like to talk with Bernadette, and I come back to you in the next 40 hours regarding the date of this meeting that we should have within the next 10 days, within this next week or the other week. That will be all right with you. Está bien con ustedes, Julia, que tengamos que reconvenir la reunión con Sudáfrica. Hacemos un intermedio para hacer una reunión ya más importante en menos de 10 días, y yo le voy a decir en 48 horas cuál es la fecha apropiada para la próxima reunión. ¿Les parece bien?
Sí.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Thank
It's
you.
okay with you, Meg. Also, we have the.
Sí, Carlos.
Yes,
Sí,
it's okay.
Sí, estoy de acuerdo en esta nueva propuesta, y también aprovecho para que le expreses el saludo a las mujeres que participaron ahora, porque el tema de mujeres nos interesa también que sea visibilizado. Entonces, lamentablemente, mi tema de inglés no es bueno, entonces, por favor, Carlos.
Okay, well, Julia is making a message for Bernadette that she congratulates herself because your participation as a woman, because Julia from Ecuador, she believes strongly that really women should be having its part of discussion, having his contribution respected by the activities, and he's very glad that you have been at this meeting, Bernadette. I don't know if you want to say hello, you want to say something to Julia. I can, unless you speak Spanish, so no problem.
Julio, And gracias.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I look forward to working with you.
Yeah.
Ok, dice, quiero trabajar, estoy viendo cómo trabajar contigo, Julia. Así que bueno, therefore we close the meeting. Thanks very much for your time. I will send you a brief report, and I have some conversations and come back with you within the next 40 hours to put a new date place for the South African meeting of this month of action. Many thanks to you. Thanks very much for your time. I club your contributions. Many thanks to all of you. Thanks, Bernadette. Thanks, Meg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raul. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Gracias, Carlos. Gracias.
Gracias. Gracias.